Hey folks, I want you to help me choose which books to pre-order for this fall. I have budgeted to pre-order 6 books this fall. I have budgeted not just dollars, but space as well, which I think is an important way to think about budgeting. You want to budget not just your money, but whether you have enough space for what you want to buy. So I'm buying a new shelf to fit my 6 books. If you want to know why I'm prioritizing buying pre-orders specifically from small presses this fall, stick to the end and I'll point you toward an explanation. Not everyone has the bandwidth to pre-order books, which is why I am letting you decide which author and publisher and book to help support without spending a dime of your own money. So here are 13 books, all of which I would love to pre-order. Tell me in the comments which books you think I should pre-order, and I will end up ordering whichever books get the most comments below. Whichever 6 of the 13 books have the most comments below. Coming out in September is a novel called Landscapes. It's by Christina and it is published by $2 Radio. This is set in the near future in the English countryside, but in a world that has been decimated by ecological disaster. The main character is named Penelope, and she lives in the dilapidated country house that sits on this estate, and she's lived there for 20 years. And in that time, it has also been the home for many others who have been displaced by environmental catastrophes. Penelope has been cataloging the artwork that is in the archives of this estate, but she, when the novel opens, has to hurry up because she and her partner have sold the house and it has been scheduled to be demolished. And so she only has a limited amount of time to finish cataloging this artwork. But then someone from her past is also on his way for a visit, and they have a violent relationship history. And so as she's waiting for this person's visit, she loses herself in thoughts about the artwork that she's cataloging. The blurb says, "This novel reinvents the country house novel for our age of catastrophe." This is a debut novel, and this is on Publisher Weekly's list of writers to watch for 2023, fall 2023. $2 Radio is a Columbus, Ohio-based publisher and one of my frequent favorites. Also coming out in September is a book of short stories called Good Women. This is from Hub City Writers Project, and it's by Halle Hill. This is a debut story collection, and it's 12 stories of 12 Black women, all who live in the Appalachian South of the United States. These are stories about family and faith and love and obsession and obstacles and community and generational trauma. And all the stories are giving readers a really introspective look at the inner lives of these 12 women. This received a starred review from Kirkus, who called it a stunning slow burn. It's also blurbed by many authors who I personally admire, including Disha Filia, who's the author of The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, who called it a fantastic firecracker of a collection. Hub City is a nonprofit organization located in Spartanburg, South Carolina in the United States. They publish about 8 to 10 books per year, and they focus in particular on both debut writers and also on books that, as they say, reinterpret, reimagine, or interrogate the modern or historical South. Their website says that they are the only independent publisher that is completely dedicated to publishing only Southern writers, which I think is very cool. I'm really drawn to publishers that engage that deeply with their physical surroundings and community of their local region. I think that's very refreshing and often seems to be producing more relevant work than some of these larger publishers, but also smaller publishers too, who are all located in New York. I'm much more interested in publishers who are located elsewhere. From Transit Books is another short story collection called At Night He Lifts Weights. And this is by Kang Young-Sook, and it's translated from Korean by Janet Hong. And again, these are short stories that are written by a very widely respected Korean writer. The collection is described as a disquieting vision of ecological dystopia, which sounds like it's a little bit of a theme here with some of these books. The website summarizes a few of the stories by saying one is about an artist who is plagued by desire for her mysterious double as disease spreads through an uncanny suburban landscape. Another is about an elderly woman who suspects the old man who lifts weights in her neighborhood playground of being responsible for a spate of murders. While elsewhere, a woman who believes she's been exposed to radioactive radiation inherits a warehouse where those fleeing the city can store their possessions. Transit Books is another nonprofit publisher who is based in San Francisco. They publish a lot of really incredible international literature translated into English. They just launched a really beautiful looking children's imprint featuring children's books from around the world. Also this fall, I feel like I should mention they are publishing Jon Fosse's new book, which sounds really intriguing, but I haven't yet finished his Septology, which is also published by Transit in the United States, and I will not be buying his new book until I have finished Septology. So his new book is called A Shining. From Melville House is a book called Octavia E. Butler, The Last Interview and Other Conversations. This is a collection of 6 interviews with Octavia E. Butler, and 3 of which have never been published before. Octavia Butler has many big fans of her science fiction. She was the first Black author to win both the Hugo and the Nebula Awards. She passed away in 2006. I am a big fan of her Lilith's Brood series, as well as The Parable of the Sower. The Last Interview is a series that Melville House publishes, and there are tons of them. And they're all interviews with really influential writers and other cultural figures, so definitely check that out. It's very cool. Melville House is located in Brooklyn, New York. Also coming out in September is a short story anthology called Peach Pit, and this is published by Zank Books. This is edited by Molly Llewellyn and Kristel Buckley. There are stories in here from Lauren Groff, Disha Filia, Kaiming Chang, Sarah Rose Etter, and 12 other award-winning and best-selling authors. And these are 16 stories of fierce and dangerous women with, I think, is my favorite cover of this list here today of pre-orders. It says online that these 16 stories, we see women at their most monstrous as con artists and murderers, cutthroats and scalpers, ruled by ambition and grief and spite. The blurbs for this book describe the stories as playful and brutal, delightfully messy, stunning, shocking, and satisfying. Zank Books is a nonprofit publisher of literary fiction and nonfiction. They release about 10 to 15 books annually. They won the 2023 AWP prize for small press publishers. AWP is the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. They have a really awesome conference every year in the United States with a lot of really amazing authors speaking at that conference. So they're very cool. So that is a very cool prize that Zank Books won this year. So the publisher was founded in 2006 in Michigan. Moving on to October, we have The New Animals by Pip Adam from Dorothy Project. And Pip Adam is a writer from New Zealand. I mentioned one of her other books, Audition, that was published in August in Australia and sounded really intriguing. And so when I saw this on Dorothy's website, I was immediately intrigued. This novel, The New Animals, is set during one night in 2016. And it is set in the Auckland fashion scene. And it follows a small group of fashion industry professionals, all workers from different generational and class backgrounds. We're talking about hairdressers and pattern makers and stylists and makeup artists. And the book, as it goes through the course of one night, delves into each of their hopes and desires and personal dramas, all while they're preparing for this really stressful and last-minute photo shoot where they don't have like the proper materials or information. And the pressure keeps building throughout the night until, as the website says, one of them decides to break away. It is described as a twisted contemporary heir to Virginia Woolf's To the Lighthouse, and it's described as dark, at times surreal, thrilling, and heartbreaking. I fear the fashion industry setting might turn some readers away, but Dorothy Project is a very serious publisher of feminist literature. They only publish 2 books per year. Every October, they release them at the same time. They're now actually distributed and sold by New York Review Books, so you can find all their past releases on NYRB's website to buy there, but you can pre-order directly from Dorothy Project's website. You can pre-order these 2 books. They're 2 October 23 books from their website, but they're only shipped to the US if you pre-order there. So I am also super interested in the other book that they're publishing this October. It's called The Long Form, and it's by Kate Briggs. And I believe this is also a novel that takes place over only one day, but this one's set in the morning, and it follows a mother and her baby who are consumed by their daily routines of life in their home, the mother and the baby, when suddenly a package is delivered to the doorstep, and it turns out to be a copy of Henry Fielding's The History of Tom Jones. And the mother begins to read, and her day with her baby becomes entwined with her thoughts about the novel. And I love that these 2 books, I think, based on the descriptions, both take part during one day or the part of one day, but The New Animals features a whole cast of characters within this condensed time period. And the long form is focused on a mother, her baby, and a novel. I believe Dorothy very carefully chooses which books they pair together each year to make sure that they are aesthetically different enough to stand out from one another. But I also wonder if they pick these 2 books that can also in some ways have a conversation with one another. So part of me wonders if that condensed time period, the fact that that was part of these novels, at least from what I understand, was kind of something that they thought could be interesting to compare and contrast to those readers who want to buy both Dorothy's books for the year. So I have decided retroactively a little bit to add the long form to my list of pre-orders. This was going to be a list of 12 books, but it is now 13 because I am adding the long form to the list of options for you to mention in the comments. Also coming out in October from New Directions is The Halt During the Chase, and this is by Rosemary Tonks. Right at the top of the webpage for this book are 2 phrases that I find difficult to resist. And those phrases are finally back in print and cult classic. This book was originally published in 1972, and it is the story about Sophie, who is trying to get out from under the thumb of her mother. She's also in love with her childhood friend, but worries that she might love him too much. The book is described as a sincere Bildungsroman and also and also a comic masterpiece. It's about love and growing up and marriage and British snobbery and classism. New Directions publishes a lot of amazing books, and they have a lot of other amazing sounding books coming out this fall, including, importantly, The Apple in the Dark by Clarice Lispector, which concludes New Directions' project to translate and publish all of Clarice Lispector's fiction. And so this is the last book in that program, and it comes out this fall. My hesitation for adding more than one New Directions book to this list is that I have a ton of New Directions books, so I'm adding the one, but we'll see what happens. From Deep Vellum is a novel called The Understory, and it's by Saneh Sangsuk, and it's translated by Poopoksakul. And this is a book by an award-winning Thai author, and it is the story of a lovable monk who is in his 90s, and he's the one remaining member of his local town who can recall the days when the town was surrounded by jungle before the jungle was overtaken by industry and capitalism. So he spends his days entertaining the children of the village with stories from his adventurous youth in the jungle. And the website says, Sangsuk's novel is a celebration of the oral tradition of storytelling, and above all else, a testament to the power of stories to entertain. And that is really right up my alley. I love stories about storytelling, so it really stood out to me. Deep Vellum is another nonprofit publisher. They're based in Dallas, Texas. According to their website, half of the books they publish are international works that have been translated into English, and half of the books they publish are English original works. I just thought that was an interesting figure about what they publish. Still in October, from Fitzcarraldo Editions, is The Possessed by Witold Gombrowicz, and this is translated from Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. I'm super interested in Polish literature, being of Polish descent myself. So this, again, stood out to me. Fitzcarraldo describes Gombrowicz as Poland's greatest modernist, which both intrigues me and slightly frightens me because it sounds intellectual. I'm not sure that I'm that smart. This is part of Fitzcarraldo's new classic series, I believe, and I think it's the third book in their new classic series. It was originally published in 1939. This is a Gothic novel on the surface, but it is also described as a comic masterpiece because it uses familiar tropes to subvert the Gothic form. It's about a young tennis coach who travels to the Polish countryside to train a young woman from a bourgeois family, and the pair's relationship develops into a twisted love affair. And meanwhile, the tennis coach becomes involved in fantastic events that are happening nearby at a rundown castle, featuring haunted kitchens and bewitched objects and clairvoyance and a mad prince. Antonia Lloyd-Jones also translated Olga Tokarczuk's Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, also published by Fitzcarraldo, and I read that book this year and loved it. So again, this extra intrigues me. Also coming out in October from Coffee House Press is Nefondo. This is by Monica Ojeda, who is an Ecuadorian author who wrote the book Jawbone, which got a lot of praise, and this is translated by Sarah Booker, who is a widely well-regarded translator of works from Spanish into English. This novel is described as techno horror. It's about 6 young artists who live in an apartment together in Barcelona. They are all connected in different ways to a controversial cult video game called Nefondo. The purpose of the video game is a mystery, but the players all find themselves drawn to it to find relief from their personal pain and trauma in their real everyday lives. But in the video game, they find a very dark, frightening, and ethically troubling virtual world that really challenges their morals. And according to the website, the novel asks the question, what happens in a virtual world that admits every taboo? In 2017, the author Ojeda was included on the Bogota 39 list of the best 39 Latin American writers under 40. If you haven't seen this list or checked it out before, you can find it online. It's a list that was actually created for the first time in 2007, and then they recreated the list in 2017, and it is awesome to browse through to find new writers or writers that are new to you from Latin America. It's very cool. I highly recommend checking it out. Coffee House Press is a very established, well-known publisher of literary work. They're based in Minneapolis, Minnesota in the United States. If you can hear something in the background, my son is watching Minecraft tutorials on YouTube. Yeah, he's not feeling well. So that's just where we are. Moving on to November, we have from Grey Wolf a book called Critical Hits, Writers Playing Video Games. And I think it would be kind of cool to pair this book with the previous one, Nefondo, that I just mentioned. I'm personally partial to video games because I'm married to someone who is a video game programmer and designer and devotee. I don't really play video games, but I love someone who does. He might actually read this book with me, which he's a big reader, but our tastes don't always align. This is edited by Carmen Maria Machado and J. Robert Lennon. It's a collection of essays by writers/gamers about their experiences with video games. And the essays explore how video games are a way to find solace and escape from grief and trauma. They're about how video games help writers and creators think deeply about their writing work, and also about how video games have a lasting impact on the writers themselves, but also our culture overall. Grey Wolf is a very well-known leading independent publisher. They're a nonprofit and they publish about 30 to 35 books per year. They are also located in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is home to a lot of powerhouse indie presses. And finally, last but very much not least, in November is a novel called Cross Stitch. And it is by Jasmina Barrera, and it's translated by Christina McSweeney. And this is from Two Lines Press. Barrera is a Mexican writer whose books have been published all around the world. I believe 2 of her books were translated into English and published by Two Lines Press. I think this might be her first book that is now being published by Two Lines Press. This is a coming-of-age novel and a story about female friendship. 3 childhood friends who grew up together and are now college-aged leave Mexico City for a trip to London. They are really eager for their visit, but find over the course of their trip that they are starting to grow apart. And then the story shifts to years later, and we follow one of these women, a woman named Mila, who is a writer and a new mother and who has just published a book on needlecraft, which is a form of artwork that has been dismissed for generations as women's work. So Mila learns some tragic news about one of these childhood friends, and it plunges her into memories of their childhood and their friendship. One blurb calls it a Ferrante-esque novel of friendship, but woven into the novel is a feminist history of needlework and embroidery, which is so much up my alley, it's not even funny, because I am similarly interested in the world of quilting and the art of quilting, which is also a form of needlework that has been long dismissed as women's work and not taken seriously because of its association with domesticity. If I could have another YouTube channel, it would probably be a quilting channel. Two Lines Press is an award-winning press committed to publishing outstanding literature in translation. They are part of the Center for the Art of Translation, which is an incredible organization that not only has the Two Lines Press publishing arm, but also has a journal and provides educational programming all around translation. And it looks like they're based in San Francisco, I believe. So that's my list. Don't forget to tell me which of these books you think I should pre-order in the comments below. I'll place my orders in September, so you have a little while, and I'll let you know what I got for sure. If you want to know why I'm doing this, check out this video here. I also need to send a huge shout out to Brian at the channel Bookish, who won my challenge from my last video, where I asked if anybody could tell me what song the author Rikki Ducornet allegedly inspired. And the song is indeed Rikki Don't Lose That Number by Steely Dan from 1974, I think. Anyway, Brian, congratulations. Huge shout out. I'm so glad that somebody was able to figure out what song that was. So thanks for figuring that out. In the meantime, happy reading, everybody. My name is Sarah, and I'll see you next time. Bye.